Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Monday. I am so glad you are joining with us. I'm going to give it a few minutes as we have attendees joining in. And I look forward to kind of introducing the session and our speaker today, who many of you have seen on an AutoLeap webinar before and at our Amplify 2024. But for this call today, I want to start by doing some housekeeping notes. We are recording this. If you do have to drop, obviously, we would love for you to stick around as long as possible. We realize some of you are hands-on in the shop. If you do have to drop, however, we will be sending out the recording sometime this week, probably Wednesday at the latest. I love that you are already in the chat. Craig, thank you so much. We would love to hear how you guys are doing, where you're coming from. At the end of the session, we will have Cecil smile. We called you out. At the end of the session, we will have a survey that is circulated. It will pop up after the session is concluded. We really do want to get your feedback, guys. We use that for sessions in the future, whether that's the topic or the speakers that we host. Although we've had a resounding request for Cecil to be on our sessions, so we bring him back for more and more because you guys want to hear from him. So thank you for that. We do give out Amazon gift cards. I want to make it very clear. The Amazon gift card, guys, is for your feedback. So I really do need live actual feedback. I will make I will kind of cut you guys off if you are not giving us feedbacks, just FYI. We're not going to just give out Amazon gift cards. So I am super excited to have you guys here. As we continue through the session, please ask us questions. I will be posing them to Cecil as he goes along. Obviously, today's session is on maximizing productivity, strategies that will help you guys as independent auto repair shops and even your multi-location shops. And so there are a lot of shops, Cecil, that you talk to that are struggling to maximize productivity. So today you're going to help us really gain some practical insights. Give us some 5 to 6 critical elements that can help propel productivity this year. So things like streamlining operations, reduce turnaround times, and boosting overall performance. This is what this is really tailored to. And I heard you had a really engaging hands-on session, no slides today. So guys, we would love to hear what you want to hear as Cecil is walking through this. Ask questions and we will get those answered to the best of our ability. Awesome, Cecil. Welcome and thank you so much. And for those of you who do not know Cecil, he is the founder and president of the Institute for Business Excellence, so a coaching company in the industry who we work very closely with. And Cecil, we always appreciate what you're doing for the industry. Continued thought leadership and help that you're guiding not only AutoLeap customers, but the industry in general. So thank you for being here.
I love doing it. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Welcome. All right. The screen is yours.
All right. Let's talk productivity. As Amber said, we like to have questions during it. If you have questions, ask the questions and we'll do our best to get to them. I don't have a PowerPoint for you. However, Amber, I will get you a productivity class, a workbook to send out just after this. I forgot to send it to you, so we'll get there.
Wonderful.
I want to talk about productivity, and I want to make a couple of statements from the beginning. Productivity in our industry runs about 72%. It's been that way for a long time, and 72% drives up our cost dramatically. So I may think I'm paying a technician $30 an hour, but then I have a load, FICA, FUTA, workers' comp, makes me $39. And then if they're about 70% productive, I'm not paying $39 for that hour anymore. I'm paying, I think it's somewhere between about 54. So my profits go down dramatically because of lack of productivity. I will also want to make a statement that productivity is usually not the fault of the technician. I was talking to one of the shops that we work with, and they have a really pretty healthy pay plan in place where their technician earns, I think, $36 an hour for just working in the shop, just normal every hour. But if the technician is productive, it can go up as high as 47 an hour. And they're not productive. Their technicians are probably closer to, 70 or 65% productive in that shop. And so I mentioned to the owner, I said, we have a management problem. So productivity starts with the pen. You can make more money with the pen than you can with anything else. And I think one of the problems we have in our industry is because we are primarily mechanics or technicians that have become owners, in many cases, we don't value what we do or what the customer should pay for that. So we think, well, this is really easy for me to do this job. I've done this job, I don't know, 57 times. And the book is 3 hours. And that seems like a lot. And in a lot of places, we're actually reducing book time, or we're only using book time. So one of the first things you can do in a shop, if you want to increase productivity, has nothing to do with technicians, is you use a multiplier on book time. There's 2 suggestions that I would have. Number one, most of the shops that I'm working with are using a 1.2 to a 1.3 multiplier on book time. So if a technician comes to us and says, this is a 3-hour job, we're adding somewhere between 20 and 30% additional time to that job. And I usually give that credit to the technician. Now, why are we doing that? Well, book time was never meant to include all of the things that a technician has to do. So starting out, God, my mind, I'm ADHD, so, and any of you that have seen my webinars know I'm going to jump around a little bit. But starting out, book time is figured, they bring a car into a bay, it's a new car, they have the part there, they have all the tools lined out, and then they have the technician do that job, and they time it. And they do that multiple times. And so that's how they figure out book time. They average multiple times. So you have a new car in a clean bay, all the tools are laid out, all the parts are there. It doesn't account for paperwork time. It doesn't account for test drive time. It doesn't count for cleanup time. And I was having a discussion the other day with one of my clients, and I said, who pays for what I call brown bananas? Grocery store is going to buy 3,000 bananas. They're not going to sell 3,000. I don't know. They'll only sell 2,800 because 200 will go brown. People won't buy them, or someone will steal them and eat them while they're walking around the store. So they just don't get paid for them. And I said, who pays for the brown bananas, the bananas that don't get eaten? And the client I had said, well, the shop does, the business does. And I'm like, no, customers have to pay for everything in your business. When you understand that, you need to build in time that your technician is going to spend. If you're going to pay the technician to do the work, then you need to build in the time, all the time necessary. So most of the shops that I have are using this matrix on their labor of 20 to 30%. And that's to make up for the time that the technician is going to do paperwork and other things. And then, I think, my gosh, our clients are going to compare us to 15 other shops, and they're going to find out that we're a little more expensive on this particular job. And I don't find that to be true. I've never found that to be true in the industry for the majority of the clients, or the clients that I want to have in my business. So number one, you can make more money with the pen than you can, and you can have more productivity with the pen than you can with any other tools in the shop. Number two, it's not the technician's fault in most cases that they are not productive. And if you want to figure out why your people are not productive, the best thing to do is ask them. Look at the processes for flow. So, what's the first happens? How do we schedule? Dispatch. How do we write up the ticket? So if you look at the tickets and you do a ticket review on your repair orders, and you say to yourself, okay, that technician came in, that customer came in with a complaint. It cost you $140 for us to diagnose that, or there's $100. So what happened is when the customer showed up, if my advisor is a
Hey, Cecil, I'm going to,
customer, do you want anything else? Is there anything else that I can do?
hey, Cecil,
Go ahead.
Cecil, you're breaking in and out. I don't know if there's an audio issue, but it's coming in and out.
Excuse me 1 second. We don't want to be breaking in and out.
Yes.
Give me a second here.
We'll get it. It's okay. And then I do have a few questions from the audience once we get your audio back up and running. Thanks, guys, for hanging tight. We're going to get the audio really quickly updated. Maybe some new batteries in there.
How is that?
Sounds better. Can you
Much
keep
better?
talking for just a second? Yep.
I will keep talking. I'll talk
You
and
will.
talk.
You will. While we
Yeah.
paused you, do you want to go
Okay.
ahead and answer a few questions that came in at the
Please.
beginning? Wonderful. Is there a prioritization of productivity tasks? Like, is it the same for the type of shop you are? Is the prioritization of productivity tasks the same regardless of the shop you are?
So I would say no, there isn't. It's if you're a general repair shop, the issues with productivity that you have are probably the same issues as a specialty shop, tire shop, big truck shop, diesel shop. You're really dealing with the same issues over and over and over again. So priority number one, set goals with your staff. What's the productivity I want? Measure and manage staff. If you have a management problem, there are two types of productivity issues. There are it's funny, I'll say institute issues. Let's say I ran a shop, it was called the Institute, and we had low productivity. There are two types of problems we have. We have institute issues. What is the institute in control of? What does dispatch, how we write up tickets, how we price ourselves, whether or not we have all the tools we need, the arrangement in the shop. I was in a shop in the Sacramento area. The bay they did the oil changes in was right next to the office. The bay they kept the oil filters and the oil and the other stuff for the service work was 5 bays down. So every time that technician had to walk down there to get the tools or walk down there to get the oil filter, they've made 4 or 5 trips across the shop every time they did an oil change. That's not an employee problem. That's an institute problem. Okay. And so when you think about productivity, you look at everything you do. You say to yourself, okay, first of all, what do I believe the techs can do? How am I pricing myself? How do I set that up? So in my shop, 1.2 times is what we did on literally every job except for what I would call a can job. So our minor service, which was our oil change with a complete inspection of the vehicle and a written documented report pre-DVI, was not only was it $165, but I paid my technician 8/10 for that. Excuse me. Did I charge enough? Did I pay enough? That's an institute problem. That's my problem, right? Whether or not the technician can do the job in the time allotted in the 8/10 may be a technician problem. It might be, say, if Bob's my technician, it might be a Bob problem. But if I don't have a goal and a target and what I believe to be true, how do I manage that person? So we need to set goals. And in my shop, by the way, just so everyone knows, I ran a shop, the last shop I personally ran, I ran for about 6 years. We had 119% productivity out of our technicians over the 6-year period, meaning that my technicians delivered 9.55 hours a day worth of work that I could bill out in an 8-hour day. And the reason they can do that is because of efficiencies that are created both with the technician skill set and within our processes, how the shop runs. And so when you walk into a shop and you have 60% productivity, the first thing that I look at is what are the goals and targets for the employee, and what does the owner or the manager believe about productivity in the business? Because if you don't believe that your techs can be 100%, you'll never get 100%. Okay. I don't know if that answers that particular question. Probably does, and then some. Did you have other questions, Amber, that you wanted to ask me right now?
If you're open to me asking them with spirit.
I kind of planned it. So
what type of jobs would get 1.2 versus 1.3 on the multiplier? So going back to
on your typical stuff that would be easier, I might go 1.2. On harder stuff or stuff that's like if I'm working on an older vehicle, let's say it's say 8 years or more, and I happen to be north of the Mason-Dixon line, I'm probably dealing with rust and other issues. And so I might do 1.3 on an older car, and I might do 1.2 on everything else except for my minor service, my diag for starting. We had a starting and charging system diag. We didn't multiply that. We had our level 1, level 2, level 3 diagnostic. We didn't use a multiplier there, but we also were not charging an hour. We were charging an hour and a half because there's no parts. And some of your efficiencies you create by charging properly. In other words, again, it's an institute problem. How am I charging for my people's time as opposed? So in a lot of shops, you're paying your tech 3/10 and you're eating the DVI. So you got 5/10, half an hour, and you're paying your tech, but you're not charging your customer. And so that would be something that if I made that decision, I certainly need to be, say, 1.3 on everything else so that I can make up for that 5/10 of an hour that I'm giving away every time I look at a car. It's about as much about management as it is about employees. Okay. It's as much internal as it is anything else. You should have multiple labor rates. You should have, frankly, multiple multipliers, depending on the situation, et cetera. And in my shop, the technicians gave the service advisors. So technician estimating is very important. How does a technician estimate? Because if the technician estimates easily and well, and we follow what the technician is telling us, we trust our technicians, then the service advisor estimates faster and there's less wasted time. So for instance, if I'm a service advisor and I get an estimate that's unclear, and let's say it's one of those jobs that the book is just completely off and the tech knows it. The book is telling us 2 hours. The tech is telling us it's 6 or not telling us at all. Then it gets sent in and it gets estimated by a service advisor that doesn't have all the knowledge. In other words, the tech knows it's a 6-hour job, but if he never tells the service advisor uses book time. Okay. And even if they're using a multiplier, they have a 2-hour job by the book. Maybe they charge 2.5 or even 2.6, but they don't charge 6. There are many jobs in the book that are incorrect, or there might be extenuating circumstances that the technician would find. So, for instance, one of my techs was doing valve covers on a 5-liter Ford pickup, F-150. And the job was like 2.6 hours by the book, and my technician wanted 6. I think it was 6 or 6.8 or something like that. There was no explanation. So as a service advisor, I had to go out to the shop, call the technician in and have a conversation with the tech, which, by the way, what happened when I'm talking to the tech, what are they not doing? They're not working on cars. So I want to have really good tech estimating that gets the right information. And a lot of shops, they've never thought of that. They never said, hey, if I really cleaned up my tech estimating, got all the best information to my service advisor, it would speed up throughput, meaning the service advisor would spend less time out in the shop talking to the the tech would be more efficient because they would have more time to work on the car, even though they spent maybe 5 minutes to write the estimate out. Okay. Now I'm not having that 5 to 10 minute conversation once or twice on the car as a service advisor. Then that makes the service advisor's time more valuable. And then the service advisor can actually get that estimate out faster, so the technician will have more work to do in a more timely fashion. A lot of times you walk into a shop, you look at their estimating process, and it takes 2.5, 3 hours to get a car through estimation and get the work sold or not sold. And in the meantime, you have a technician standing around. If you look at your processes and you say to yourself, well, wait a minute, we have a bad process of tech estimating. The service advisor not getting information, which is causing probably 3 things. Number one, I want from my technician 4 items. I want to know what the car needs, why it needs it in as few words as possible. I want a comprehensive parts list from the technician. And you'll have people come here jumping in going, oh my God, I'm going to have my technician, look up all the parts. No, not necessarily, but I want to know from the technician what's required on this job. And I also want the technician to give me a time. I want the technician to say, yeah, the book's right, this is a 2-hour time, or no, the book's off, it's a 6-hour job, or it is right, it's 2 hours, but I want 3, whatever. I'm going to work with the technician. And we had a rule in my shop that within 25% of the book time, if the technician's time was within 25% of the book time, the service advisor had to sell it for that time. No taking off. Okay. So you're looking at your processes and you're saying to yourself, do I have institute problems or do I have Bob problems? Okay. So, all right, that's that question. You have, it sounded like you had more than one.
We have a ton of questions. So hopefully I hope you're okay with this. I'm trying to answer them in the way that you're speaking. What are key factors to considering when implementing different labor rates? What are the key factors?
I think you decide what legitimately you think that job that you need to be successful and profitable on that job. I think that's factor number one.
Yeah.
Factor number two is that going to create productivity or take away from productivity? In other words, and I don't want to cheat customers. So that's a factor in this. Maybe it's factor number 3. I don't want to charge customers, 12 hours on a 3-hour job. I don't believe that to be fair to my client, but I don't have a problem charging 4 hours on a 3-hour job to a customer because I'm taking into account things that the technician is doing that the original book time never took into account. And that's what I need to be profitable to 20% net. So to me, I'm going to start there. I'm going to set a goal for each tech and don't set a crappy goal. I mean, if your tech's giving you 4 hours right now, I have this little saying that goes in my head. How many tires could a tire buster bust if a tire buster could bust tires? And it would go for an oil changer, a GSM, whatever. If I had a good tech, say B level, A level, master level tech in my shop, and they had everything they needed to be successful, meaning tools, jobs, authorizations, parts on time, how many hours could that person or should that person produce in a 8-hour day, right? And so we also should clarify productivity. When I talk about productivity, I'm not talking about proficiency or efficiency. Productivity is I'm here for 8 hours, I'm on the clock for 8 hours. How many hours did I produce during that time? And if I'm using a 20 or a 30% multiplier, and if I have a good technician that has done the job more than once, now I know the tech knows the job well, and I believe the tech should be beating book time, 60, 70% of the time because they know how to do the job. I talk about the scars on my hands. I have, whatever it is now, 153, 154 scars. And those scars are from working on cars. And I earned that extra hour on that job just because the book says it's 2.5, and we're going to charge 3, and I can do it in 1.5. I earn that. It's because I'm a great master at what I do. There's a story, joke, whatever. There's a squeaky floor in this beautiful concert hall, and they hire multiple different people to fix it, and nobody can fix the squeak in the hall. And so they hire a master carpenter, and he walks in, and he walks up and down the floor for a bit, and then he says, "Okay, I can fix it, and it's going to cost $2,000." And so they're like, "Okay, great. We can't have this squeak in this beautiful concert hall." And so what he does is he takes one nail out of his bag and he puts the nail in a very specific place, hammers it in, squeak goes away. And all of a sudden the concert hall manager is like, "Well, I'm not paying $2,000 for that, for you just to drive one nail." And what we think is that we're nail drivers in this business. That guy is a master. He knew where to put the nail. They're not paying, $2,000 for him to drive one nail. They're paying $2,000 for him to know where to drive the nail. And so I think as owners, and even service advisors, we give in to the temptation to make the customer feel great. "Oh my gosh, you guys are less than other people. Oh my gosh, this was less than we thought." And that's fine when I can do that legitimately and still protect my family. And I do mean my wife and kids at home, or grandkids and kids that aren't at home anymore. But I also mean the employees that work for me. Am I protecting my technician when I'm taking 5/10 off the job? We see just on every like Facebook, every group, we see techs complaining that they're not getting paid enough. And we have owners and service advisors that are giving their work away, when we have masters that deserve $2,000 for knowing where to drive the nail, right? And so we have to think of ourselves in a different way. And you're right. I'm crazy. I have this vision of this industry of professionals who get paid for their knowledge and their experience and all of that. And maybe that's crazy, but I'm going to die with that very same vision. Create goals first. Understand realistically. I've been in classes where I had 200 people in the class, and I said, "How many of you actually believe that a technician can only do 6 hours a day?" And half the class will raise their arms. And so if you only believe a tech can do 6 hours a day, then you're not finding where the institute problems are and where the Bob problems are. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so that's a management issue. When I have institute problems, the manager or the owner has to fix those, and estimating might be one of those areas. I wish there was a manual that taught us all, well, exactly how should I price myself? What exact rate? And there kind of is. Certainly, I can teach you all of that, but it's not as simple. If I'm in a certain part, if I'm in Georgia, in rural areas, I'm probably not charging as much as if I'm in Los Angeles. But also my cost of living there is less than it is in LA. You have to make decisions about your business and what you believe should be able to do. And I think one of the great things about being who I am is that I've worked with, I don't know, probably 3,000 shops over the years. And I have seen shops with 120% productivity. And I've also seen shops with 40% productivity. And the difference is, do we believe it? Do we have goals for it? Are we managing it? So if I'm going to set goals for my tech of 8 hours a day or 9.6, as in my shop, I'm going to let the tech know what that is. I'm going to help them understand why that goal is set so they believe that it's possible. And then I'm going to start working on where are the problems. The management should constantly, if I don't have 100% productivity out of my techs, I should say, what problems, institute problems do we have? What Bob problems do we have? How do we solve those problems? So again, a great estimating, I would say form, but online, what is the tech going to give my service advisor will increase the service advisor's efficiency and the tech's productivity, if that information is passed well. Dispatch. A lot of shops will dispatch one car to a tech, and they'll hold on to all the other tickets. It's kind of in a pile on the service advisor's desk. And when the technician gets done with that car, and the technician comes up and say, hey, I'm done, and the service advisor has time, which might be 25 minutes, 30 minutes later, now all of a sudden the tech gets a second job. Well, what if the tech gets held up for a part? What if the tech gets held up because we don't have the right authorization, or there's something else, or something, and they don't have anything else to do? What's a natural tendency of a tech that doesn't have a second job that they know they're supposed to get done? There's easy things to do, like adding a matrix. And then there's harder things to do, which are, changing the way we dispatch, changing the way we schedule. Holy smokes. We still have shops scheduling waiters where customers can come in throughout the day and wait for 30 minutes for their car. And we're pulling techs off of a $3,000 job to do a, $59 waiter who's not in the right place to make the best decision about their automotive service and repair, because all they're thinking is all the things they have to do today. And we wonder why the tech's not efficient. When you pull somebody off of a complicated job, at least for me, when I come back, I need to spend 10, 15 minutes figuring out where I was, making sure I didn't miss anything, kind of rechecking some of the stuff, some of the steps to make sure that I don't screw something up. Talking to one of my clients, they had an Audi in for timing chain, and the technician did it and put it all together and was off a tooth. Probably because they got interrupted in the middle of when they were setting it all up, and they didn't double check and make sure. So the car wouldn't run correctly. So they had to tear it all down again. And then when they put it back together, it was off a tooth. Had to do the job 3 times, but we only got paid 1 time. That cost that particular shop probably not just the 9 hours for each time you had to pull it back apart, so 18 hours, but it also cost them the 18 hours of time that he wasn't able to bill out on other cars. So you have to think about this in a more big picture kind of way, and you have to drill it down to, again, do I have an institute problem? Is there a problem with my dispatch? Is there a problem with me interrupting technicians in the middle of jobs? Is there a problem that I've got, 15 waiters coming in today and I'm pulling techs off of other jobs and I still want them to be efficient? Is that problem an institute problem, or is that a Bob problem, right? And then I have to fix the institute problems. And maybe some I decide not to. Maybe I say to myself, well, Cecil's full of crap. We're going to have waiters. I'm not going to fix that one. But what other things can I fix? What other institute problems can I fix, right? And then I want Bob to recognize the problems that Bob has. So we don't often recognize our own issues. We need someone to bring attention to them. And so that's what a manager does. A manager says, hey, you're supposed to do 8 hours. You only did 6. And you're only doing, 30 a week. And you're supposed to do 40. So what do you think's wrong? And if the employee says, well, the way I get dispatched is not okay. I only have 1 car, and sometimes I have to wait for my second car. Frankly, in my shop, we scheduled every job to come in the morning. I didn't have any waiters whatsoever. We didn't do any cheap oil changes. We kept the car for at least the day. We dispatched every car by 9 o'clock in the morning. All the cars we had in the day, 13, 14 cars for 4 employees, 4 techs, were all dispatched. And then throughout the day, the manager, whoever was in charge, service advisor, service manager, whatever you want to call it, would say, oh, wait a minute. We just sold for Tom. We just sold 25 hours worth of work, and he still has 2 cars to diagnose today. And so the manager would then go to Tom and say, you're booked, you're busy. I'm going to take these 2 cars and redispatch them to someone else. But again, if our techs don't have work, or if they don't know, I have another weird saying, and that is, a tech will if only given the job, a tech will take the amount of time that the job requires. So if I give a tech 4 hours worth of work in an 8-hour day, that will take them 8 hours. If I give a tech 10 hours worth of work in an 8-hour day, my experience, if the systems and processes are run well, and I have a manager that's actually managing, That tech will do 10 hours in a 10-hour day if they have 10 hours worth of legitimate time to do. And so my guys by 9 o'clock pretty much knew what they were at least starting with. And when they got held up on one job, they had another job they knew to go to. They didn't stand around. They didn't talk on the cell phone. They went to work because that in part is how they got paid. And you want to have pay systems that support that. You want to have a base pay based on the hourly, and then you want to have a performance part of your pay plan based on additional productivity, knowledge, skill set, etc. Okay. Other questions? You
knocked a few birds out, so you did good. So the next question, I think this is more on. I'm going to say this is on an institute. Let's just say company issue. So let me see if I'm right. What are your thoughts on how to protect an owner operator from the technicians, service advisors, etc., from just coming into his office and inundating him with questions when he's trying to focus on whatever he needs?
That's an owner. That's an owner problem. Yeah. Okay, that is not a service advisor problem or a technician problem. We have made ourselves the Shell answer man. Some of you, I'm dating myself, will remember the Shell answer man. Big commercials about that. He had all the answers to everything. I see shop owners that have become the Shell answer man in their business. And I'll talk about electricity because a lot of the guys in here are going to be technical. And so electricity follows a rule, and the rule is it always goes to the quickest path to ground. What's the easiest route? So if I put electricity through a series of wires, it will go to the first ground and not to the last ground. It'll go to the thing that's easiest for it. So if you've become easy for your people, if they're electricity and you're the first ground, they will come to you all the time. And owners and managers, and even service advisors, have to stop being that person. I don't know. I hate to condemn any generation, and I don't think it's a endemic of one generation or another, but we want the easy answer. So if I can go to the owner when I get question, oh my gosh, I've got a code. I traced it to the problem that the computer told me, and that's not it. I don't know what to do. I'm going to go to the owner. And of course, the owner wants the tech to be efficient because he's already not efficient. So the owner says, oh, just go do this, right? Except the owner learned how to do that by struggling through that repair the first time, or maybe even the second time before they figured it out. And so we are answering far too many questions for our people. If we have system and process in our business, that answers 50% of the questions. What's the process? What's the system? When people come to me and they say, well, should we do that? We have our mission statement. We have our core values. We have 5 core values in the company. And my question to them is, does it fit within our core values? Yes or no? That's it, right? And if the answer is it fits within our core values, then you know the choice you should make. I don't have to make it for you. So if we have a repair process that we've talked about, if we have what do I do when I get in trouble process? I mean, we have so many resources today for working on cars that we didn't have 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Why is the owner or the manager or the service advisor the first place that the tech goes, right? Because it's easy. Stop being easy. Start telling your people, I'm not going to answer those questions for you. Because you want people that can make good decisions and know how to make the right decisions, and they never will if they're always relying on you to make the decision. And one of the funniest things, Amber, I find, you'll have an owner that will be out, or even a master, like their shop foreman will be out for a week. And you know what? The shop does okay without the foreman there or the owner there. And so the owner wasn't even there to get asked questions. The reason that so many questions are coming their way is they haven't created any boundaries at all. And they don't know how to tell their people no, because the priority is get that car out today and get that money in the bank, instead of what's the system and process that will get that car out quickly so that we can always put money in the bank.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we're also afraid to fail, right? And the way that I can relate this, I don't own a shop, right? I'm not a business owner, but when my son climbs a tree and then asks me to get him down, what lesson is that teaching him, right? Yes, as a mother, I want to get him down so he doesn't break a bone. But again, if he does break a bone and he does it himself, that's the lesson he teaches himself, right? And so it's so important for our employees, even ourselves, to be less accessible. And I think you mentioned it, generational. I think it's just society, right? We all have our iPhones. We have, chat GBT and all of these things that we can just look up. But you are right. There is a generation where they are so used to not actually looking it up and just going to somebody. So I think that's a really good pivot.
I think we've created that within our businesses a lot in this particular, and it's probably true of a lot of industries.
All of them, yeah.
But I think what I ask my clients to start doing is when someone comes to you and asks a question, first of all, you should be answering maybe 20% of their questions. The other 80% you probably shouldn't answer. I ask them to stop and think, is this a question I should answer before they answer it? If the answer is no, you tell the employee that's something you need to figure out. I'm not a tech anymore. When I was a service advisor, when I became a service advisor, I would have techs come to me and say, what's the fix for this? And I'd be like, I'm not the tech. I'm the service advisor. I have different responsibilities. That's your job to figure it out. It also creates accountability, because if the owner's always the one, when it doesn't solve the problem, the owner then becomes accountable for the not having it solved. Not my fault. That's what the owner told me to do. And so I think all of us, we'd like to reduce our accountability and not take the consequence for that. And part of that is asking too many questions of other people so we can say, no, that was so-and-so that told me to do that. All right, go ahead, next.
What are some effective production tracking applications that a shop can utilize when the estimating platform is not enough?
Unfortunately, there aren't really great tools in the industry to track production. I built a piece of software 25 years ago. It never took traction, but it was literally productivity tracking, hours tracking, and it gave real-time data to the employees and the owners about what the productivity was, what the sales were, and it actually projected based on current productivity where we're going to end up at the end of the period. And that didn't take off. That piece of those patents were just sold to another company who hopefully will take it and run with it. But currently in most of our point of sales, I'm not seeing what I'd like to see. So what I need to understand, and I can run this report in AutoLeap, and that is, at the end of the day, how many hours did my guy actually produce that we were able to get paid for, that are done? And so I can create my own daily report that looks at everyone's productivity, and you should post it on the wall so that they know if I'm an employee who's supposed to do 8 hours a day and my productivity today was 6, do you want me going home feeling good about it because I don't know? Or do you want me to know that tomorrow I have to act a little differently and work a little harder? Which one is it? Once you set goals, you should have a display, whether it's a whiteboard or some kind of computer display that will show what the productivity was for each person and what the overall productivity for the business is. That's what you need. And there's some simple reports. I have a weekly report that will pop out most of that. Also, if you understand your financials, your hour is worth your effective labor rate times 1 plus parts over labor. Not a complicated formula, but it is algebra. But basically, if you say I'm $120 an hour, most shops, parts and labor are very close to 50%. It shouldn't be 50-50, but they are. And so if I'm $120 an hour effectively, then I'm $230 an hour for parts and labor for my tech. This is rough math in Cecil's brain. So if I've got someone that's 8 hours a day, that's going to be $1,840 that they should have produced, that I should have sold, that I should have in the bank today. So if we brought in $1,840 for each guy, then we hit 100% productivity. So if you understand your numbers and you understand what each hour is worth, you can kind of look at your sales and and it will tell you what your production was. So how much did Bob do? How much did Tom do? How much did, Bailey do? And I want to know that. If I'm a manager, I absolutely want to know that every day, so that anyone that's lagging behind, that's falling behind, I can get with them to identify, is it an institute problem or is it a Bob problem, right? And that's kind of one of the really key things is, do I have someone working on that and solving the institute problems, and helping Bob understand what his problems are and how to solve those.
Great. Appreciate that. The next one, so you did mention earlier, and I just want to make sure everybody that's still on, thank you guys for everybody who's staying. We will give it another 15 minutes. So if you have questions, please do. Craig asked, is there a productivity checklist form or tracking in an Excel sheet? I think you mentioned you had a tool for them, but do you have anything?
Checklist for tracking in an Excel sheet,
or just any type of resources for
I have a weekly report that I have my people fill out that shows productivity. I have a monthly report that I have my people fill out. I won't pass out the monthly report because it's very complicated and it's also very proprietary. I will, however, give you a weekly report, and I have some projection tools that I will send to you, Amber, that you can get out to the people that attended, that will help me understand if I'm this much an hour, then how many hours, how many dollars should I be bringing in that time period?
So okay. Projection tools and the weekly productivity.
Yeah, and you're going to send me an email right after this that says, "Hey, Cecil, you promised to give me this stuff."
Absolutely, you guys got it. Wonderful. Anthony mentioned the 1 Minute Manager. Going back to that question earlier about people coming into your office, that is a really good resource for you guys to read. Taking the emotion out of it, making it about business, giving it back to employees is a really good book. And then another question, I think that everybody is also wanting to get this. How can I get a well-trained professional? Or how can I train them to be a professional?
Well, I think you have to have, first of all, a good interview process. And it's just like if you want crappy customers, there's certain marketing that you're going to do. Same thing for employees. You need to have a good ad. You need to have good management, and you need to have a good interview process when people come in. And if you want a professional, there are questions that you can ask that will help you understand if that person is more of a professional or less of a professional. So you need to get good at interviewing. And then I think, like in my shop, everyone that came in my shop, whether you were a 25-year veteran of the industry or a 5-year veteran, or you just started, had a mentor assigned to them. And we had a list of things that they were going to be trained on that we knew, their mentor was going to work through for them. And so you're starting it in your ad, you're continuing it in your interview process, and then you're also reinforcing it in your systems and process in the way you run your business. So you need to be congruent kind of throughout. As an example, like your advertising, I see shops that will run, they're really good looking shops. They're marble, countertops and tile floors and all this. And they'll run a $10 off if you spend $25 and $50 off if you spend, $500 and $100 off if you spend $1,000. And so you have this ad that looks like you're kind of a discount shop, but you're really not, okay? And so when the customer sees that ad, the discount customer walks in your door and gets confused, all right? They look around, they go, well, wait a minute, this isn't a discount shop, but I thought it was based on its advertising. That very same thing is true of the way we market for technicians, and even throughout our interview process. I think in general, most technicians are not necessarily great interviewers, even because they start asking technical questions. And what we really need to know first are character questions and, kind of who you are deep down. And then I can ask you technical questions later once I understand what your character is and whether or not you fit in my culture, which also, if you create a culture of productivity in your business, then you're likely to get productivity. So if you're measuring it, if you're managing it, if you're talking about it in your interview process, if you're using mentors to help them understand that, and then if your pay plan supports it, right? Productivity. We have a lot of shops that are paying hourly, and they just pay hourly, and it doesn't matter how many hours I produce. So one of the first things that happens often when I start working with a client is I try to find out kind of who they are and how they're managing their people. And we have a lot of guys that are screaming and yelling at their employees, but their employees are not changing. So if the screaming and yelling is not doing the job, it would be like, I don't know, expecting to fix a leak, but you never replace the radiator, which is the problem. You're always replacing the water pump. And if that's not going to solve your problem, find out what's going to solve your problem. Stop screaming and yelling. That doesn't belong in business. Learn how to manage people correctly, create expectations, goals, and then help them understand what a Bob problem is and what a institute problem is, and then fix the institute problems. Stop taking away the hope of your people that they can ever be productive because your shop runs poorly. Look at your estimating. Look at your dispatch. Look at how you schedule. Look at how work flows through your shop, how you communicate, how technicians estimate, how service advisors estimate. Take responsibility for the things that are your responsibility and get them fixed, and you'll create more productivity in your business.
We don't have any other questions. Vic asked about training for service advisors and managers, and I did send over your website programs for both general managers and advisors, and we'll be in contact afterwards.
I think we have a great service advisor training program. Of course, I own the company, so I developed most of it, so I would think it was great. We get great results from it. I think we have a great management training program. We get great results from that. And I think all owners need to learn management. There's some great accountability books. There's some great manager books, things that you would, read or have read to you, however you want it, Audible, however you want to do it. I could go on about productivity for the next 3 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours. I think we got about 5 minutes left.
We do have 2 more questions, so they're still coming in unless you wanted to finish out.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
With vendor parts delays being a major issue at this point in time, how do we improve production when it's a parts delay?
Manage your vendors, first of all. You need to have 2 or 3 good vendors, and it needs to be not about what it costs, but about how quickly they can get your parts and how the quality of the part. So you manage your vendors like you manage your employees. The better you manage your vendors, the better that will happen. I would also say that there's a third thing that you're going to find when you're looking at this wall that's keeping you from being productivity with all its different bricks. Your dispatch brick, your tech enthusiasm brick, etc. One of those bricks is going to be, we're in the middle of the country. We only have a certain amount of suppliers. They cannot get the parts to us quickly. That's not something I can fix. So work around that. What other things can I fix? There are challenges in life. I shattered my right leg. I'm not going to run any races. I work around that. I do things that I can do. And I do what I can do really well so that my right leg doesn't come into play. Right. And I think in the shop, if you have vendor delays, etc., talk to your vendors. Find other vendors, find other suppliers if you need to. Make sure that you manage. I'm probably the only guy ever that went to my vendors and said, charge me 2% more, just get me the parts here in 30 minutes. How do we do that? If I'm going to spend $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 with you every month, I want the parts here quickly and I want a quality part. I don't want a part that's going to be breaking down or falling apart. And I think right now, some shop owners, rather than price their parts correctly because there's so much quote unquote transparency and parts competition, they're trying to buy cheaper parts from a cheaper vendor, and that's never going to it's never going to pay off. It's just not going to pay off for you. Find good vendors and manage your vendors. That's all I'll say on that subject right now. And if you want to have more, whoever it was,
communicate expectations, I would imagine.
What's that? Yeah, I set my vendors down every year, and I said, this is what I spent with you last year, and this is what I'm probably going to spend with you this year. This is what I expect of you. Can you meet that expectation? You create goals for them too. Every position you have in the business should have goals, and the vendors are a part of your business, and you need to create realistic goals for them. And then if there's things you can't fix because now it's a different world than it was 5 years ago, then work around that. I need to bring more jobs in. I may have to have more space. I maybe have to buy a small vehicle so I can move things in and out of my shop while we're waiting for parts. I have to work with what I have. But I'm still going to fix the Institute problems, and I'm going to help Bob understand what his problems are and help Bob come to the right answers to solve Bob's problems. And then there are a few things I may not be able to affect much. I'll do the most I can, but I'll spend my energy in places where my energy will give me the best return.
I love that. That was answered really well. Last question. I think we've got a few, and I'm going to kind of piecemeal this one together. How do I take into account teamwork and customer satisfaction in a tech bonus?
I think customer satisfaction is not necessarily up to the technician. I think that's more of a service advisor bonus structure. The service advisor is really the interface between the tech and the customer. And so, yes, I think a tech has something to do. If they're going to have a lot of comebacks, then my customer satisfaction is going to go down. If they're going to leave greasy fingerprints on the car, my customer satisfaction will go down. If they leave rags under the hood that are going to then smoke or, whatever, catch fire, then my customer satisfaction is going to go down. But customer satisfaction primarily as a service advisor and or an institute issue. And so I'm going to put processes in place to make sure that we have a good QC on the car, whether that's the tech doing it or an individual. As far as quality of work, having production bonuses that also either usually reward, not punish, but reward them for doing a great job on the car. I would also say education. The smarter they are, the more they know, the better job they'll do on the car. And then I think if the owner's answering too many of their questions, they're not learning what they need to learn. So I would say the secret for all management is really creating a vision up front and helping them to understand what that vision is and agree to that vision. So when I sat and talked with my employees, I came into a shop that was really losing a lot of money, not doing very well, about $1.1 million with 14 employees. I sat the employees down and I said, what kind of a shop do we want to be? Do we want to be an also ran? Do we want to be a discount shop? Do we want to be I don't really give a crap shop. We're just going to drag as much money through the coffers as we want to. Or are we going to be a great shop? Are we going to be the best shop? And so we defined that and discussed it in a company meeting, and we discussed it routinely. Whenever our comebacks went up too much, we sat down and said, what's our goal for comebacks? And in my shop, it was less than 1% based on dollars spent on comebacks. And at one point, we were at 8% in my shop. And I sat down with the employees and I said, what's the goal? Because we'd already talked about it previously and we'd agreed to it. And they said, well, look, the goal is less than 1%. And I told them, well, right now we're at 8%. And everybody kind of jaws dropped. People went, oh my God, that's not acceptable. And then we sat down in that meeting and we came up with 3 or 4 solutions, implementation things to do to increase or decrease our comebacks and increase our customer satisfaction. We put those in play. Then we reported that, hey, we went down below 1%. We're back where we need to be. Thank you very much. And I think if you create the vision and you help them, there's like if I'm selling to a client with a car, a whole nother subject, but I want to know who they are, how they think about their car, et cetera, because I want to lead them. I want to say, this is kind of a nice car. Are you thinking about keeping it? I think you can get another 5-10 years out of it, blah, blah, blah. And if they agree to those things, then I have a different conversation. If they say, well, I hate this car and I'm going to get rid of it next week. By the way, customers will also lie to you, so you don't always take what they tell you, with we take some of it with a grain of sand. But if I can define the kind of shop we want to be with my employees, and then I can have regular meetings about that and help them see we are or we're not that. And if we're not that, is it an institute problem or is it a Bob problem, right? And if it's a Bob problem, then how do we help Bob get where he needs to be? If it's an institute problem, how do we solve that? It goes for almost everything that I'm going to manage in my company, right? And so I would tell you that in your pay plans, they should about 40% of your pay to any employee for any position should be rewarding for the behaviors you want from them. And about 60% should be base. And we have financial classes online at our gearforshops.com. We have, we're going to be teaching a lot of financial classes at all the different events that are going to happen this year. If you don't understand your business financially, it will be hard for you to understand some of the other things that will help you to build the right pay plan to manage and motivate the person that's out there. Get the right pay plan in place. Stop rewarding them for crappy production and crappy work. Start rewarding them for good production and good work.
Love that. I think that's really important. And I think a lot of times, I think employees too are looking for rewarding what they're supposed to be doing. I think we've gotten away from actually rewarding people for working hard and being the best at their skill, right? Sports, right? We give everybody a trophy and it's lost its meaning. And so rewarding people for actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, and setting those expectations as the owner, that really, I think, setting the goals and understanding productivity issues and where they're coming and holding people accountable.
We did $2.6 million with 4 technicians, 2 service advisors, and a parts person at our shop. It's 119% productivity out of, I would say, everyone in the business. People ask me why that happened. I will tell you, it's not because Cecil was managing it. Maybe in some part, maybe 20% was that. But it's really because we decided who we wanted to be. And we constantly went through and said, okay, if we're not there, what's in the way? Is it an institute problem? Is it a Bob problem? And we fixed those and we continue to fix them. And if you own a business and you're not spending the bulk of your time doing that, then you're spending the bulk of your time in the wrong place, doing the wrong things.
Love that. And going back to the questions, making sure too that your employees have the resources to be able to figure those things out, right? And so that goes back to processes. Have you set them up for success?
Well, we have a couple of really great process things. I wrote an article, I don't know, 20 years ago about processes, and I think I defined 63 or 64 processes. My latest class has like 140. You look at 2 different things for process. It's a whole nother class, but I look at my positions and the requirements. So every position I have has 3 goals, 3 targets at least. And so I look at the position and what process do I need for that position to be successful? And then I also look at my workflow from answering the phone call to the follow-up with the customer and all the way through to develop the processes, the process for dispatch, the process for scheduling, the process for technician estimating, the process for service advisor estimating. How do we finish the work order? The process for asking for referrals, the process for tracking marketing. You look at all these processes and you just write them down and you say, okay, every business already has processes. The problem is most of them are not official, and therefore they're not managed and evaluated and improved constantly. And so you start somewhere, you get the first process, and the first process is I teach everyone in my company how to write a process, so I don't have to write them all. And then the second is to identify everything. And then, by the way, if you're one of those people that has to have everything perfect before you start, you're never going to have completely perfect processes for your business. You do the best you can, then you improve them as you deal with them and have issues with them. But it is one way to create consistency of product and consistency of profit, and productivity.
Yeah. And I think too, right? we are a management system that helps with these things, right? Your efficiency, your productivity, but it has to start from you, right? Tools in place are great, but if you don't have processes in place, they're only going to work as they're supposed to, or
It's
not
funny
as
too,
great.
because you're depending on the management system you have, you're going to design some of your processes around that system because you have to. How do I write people up? How do I finish tickets? How does my technician estimate within the system to get it to the service advisor, et cetera? And if you don't have a management system, we have people that surprisingly don't have management systems. Oh my gosh, you got to start there. Second thing for me would be marketing, website, SEO, SEM, and then coaching is probably third. I hate to say it, but it's probably third, because if I can't get the information and you can't get the clients, we're all in trouble.
Yeah. Last note, and I want to make sure that I've directed the attendees to the correct resources. When you were talking about processes, I took them to your course library on your homepage. Is that where you would like them to go? All of that should be there.
Yes.
So take a look at that, James. I put that in as well. And
Kent Bullard has a great class on process. It's a little more modern because he's younger. I have a great class on processes in there. It's a little less modern because I'm older. But both of them have really great assets that really help you get it done.
Yeah, I love that. Guys, there's a lot of other great resources when we're talking about service advisor training. There's a lot of industry events out there that are held for you guys. The Institute hosts a lot. Something that we love to do as a company is to help kind of sponsor you guys to get to these events. So if there's any events that you are interested in or you don't know where to look for those, you can email me at amber@autoleap.com and we will get you those resources to help you get there. So we look forward to hosting you guys at our next webinar next month. More details will be pushed out, but Cecil, I know you're with us for a few months this year, so everybody be on the lookout. We have at least 4 more webinars with Cecil, if not more. You can go to our website online under the resource tab. Some of the things that Cecil was talking about have actually been webinars that we've already hosted. We do have an on-demand resource for you to go and get that from us. Or go to Cecil's website. Happy to get you guys connected. They're a phenomenal coaching company that we work with. So we really appreciate it. Thank you for the engagement. Cecil, thank you as always for your time. I look forward to seeing you on Thursday at your home.
Thank you for having me. I can't
wait. For the event. I'm excited, guys. We did send out the webinar survey. I want to make a note again. We are cracking down. We really do want actual survey feedback. It is important to us. So if you have any questions, guys, just let me know. But thank you, everybody, for joining. We had a lot of people staying. So, Cecil, thank you as always. Michael, thanks for the behind the scenes. Bye, guys.
Thank you.